Welcome back to my watercolor channel. Today I paint a tree. We still have winter, but I made the tree quite colorful. I use some masking fluid and some cling film, so I spread it at the top of the tree at its crown because I wanted it to stay quite white as it is largely still being covered by snow. Then I add some water. Basically, I spread some water at the top of the paper where the sky is, and then I use some phthalo blue and then I spread it from the top to the bottom with very smooth and large brush strokes. I recommend to use quite a big brush for painting the sky. And my painting is tilted so that the paint is flowing downwards. And then I add a little bit of lemon yellow at the bottom of the sky. I make a nice orange, brownish orange, so I use some yellow ochre and some crimson red. While the paper is still wet, I add with a thinner brush some orange, which are basically some further away standing trees. And I spread it a little bit, and then adding a bit more of orange whereby the red is coming through more. But then I use some burnt amber underneath the tree. And those colors or those paints are mixing nicely together. I have not wetted the lower bottom of the painting, so it's quite dry. Then I mix a little bit of the burnt amber with some indigo blue and add it underneath the burnt amber brushes and also at the top. Spreads nicely, and then adding some ground which is not covered in snow, so it has a tint of yellow ochre. Because there's another tree line at the right side, so I mix a greenish color out of turquoise blue and some radiant blue, but I add some indigo blue to make it much more darker, and then I start adding it. The upper part was still a little bit wet, so the tree line looks nicely blurry, but towards the bottom of the tree line it's more dryish. I use here also quite a thin brush, a medium-sized brush. And I thought that it has some strong colors, but I'd rather want to keep it light, so I added a layer of just water and it flows downwards. Then adding some more darker colors, so it really kind of like pops out. Then I continue with the ground, and I prepared some turquoise blue. Again, he used a big brush. I have not wetted the ground, and the paint is very weak in pigment, so basically a little bit of turquoise blue and then a lot of water. And I paint towards the main attraction of the painting, which is gonna to be the tree. While the ground is still wet, I use some stronger turquoise blue, and then I add some ultramarine blue as a shadow of the tree. It's still mixing with the turquoise blue as the ground is still quite wet. And then I continue to add some of the ultramarine blue to the top of the tree on the left side. At first I add some light layer of this blue shade, and then adding more and more. Then I mix the ultramarine blue with a little bit of a crimson red, which gives a very beautiful purple. And you can see that the masking fluid is coming nicely through. And my last color is then deep yellow, so it's kind of like on the right side of the tree. While the tree is still wet, I thought I add some stronger colors, which means basically more pigment, but I am using the same colors as I have used before. So stronger ultramarine blue, then a stronger purple, and of course some deep yellow. I try to spread it around, and then I wait a little bit and take off some of the excess paint. Then I continue with another tree line. I use more of phthalo blue, and I try to add to the top some single tree shape looking trees. And then I spread phthalo blue by adding more water, so it gets more diluted, and the paint kind of flows downwards nicely. And because the tree sides are relatively white and they remained white as such, I add here a little bit more stronger of phthalo blue, and then I continue on the left side adding the same color of blue, and then painting a little bit of a diagonal, so creating more directions within the painting and make it more interesting. While the paper is still wet, I add some more phthalo blue with a pinch of indigo blue, and then kind of creating another tree line or making a more interesting structure. But you have to make sure that the paper is still moist. However, it doesn't really matter if you have those water stains afterwards. A bit abstract, and the trees are further away. And then I continue with the tree trunk. I add the same colors I have used before, so basically yellow ochre and some crimson red mixture, which I apply then on the trunk, but then I leave a little bit space in between, and underneath I add more of the burnt amber as well, where the roots are, as well as underneath the crown. They mixing nicely together, and then adding more of a mixing the burnt amber with indigo blue, so it gives a very nice dark brown, and adding it underneath the top, so some of the snow-covered branches really kind of pop out, as well as between the trunk and within the trunk, adding here and there some darker bits closer to the root. Then here's some ultramarine blue, and I added it closer to the trunk roots, where it kind of represents the shadow, and adding a stronger shadow for the tree. The pigments are not as strong, they're relatively like mediums. Then I continue with the top of the crown. I have taken off the masking fluid. There's a lot of white areas left, so I sprayed it with a small spray bottle and adding of the same colors that I have used before. And the reason for the spray bottle is so it kind of keeps the same structure as I have done with the masking fluid. So it's very even and just really random, and then building up the color already. So the idea is that some of the branches obviously at the front are less white, or are more highlighted by the sun, and in between some darker bits, so creating more of a three-dimensional texture. Obviously the tree hasn't got only any leaves, but it's more like shadows coming from the snow, especially if this tree has a lot of branches. Then I continue to add some of thicker branches within the tree after the paint has dried. I use basically burnt umber and some indigo blue. And maybe it's important, or it is quite useful to draw the branches within if you are not as experienced to paint trees as me. So after the paint is dried, to add with a pencil some single branches, and then use more of a darker color of brown, so basically adding more indigo blue to the brown mixture, and then adding more to the top. Sometimes I'm not sure whether I want to have loads of branches or just a little bit, but I think I have learned that it's better to have less than too much. This tree exists in reality, but it is a little bit of my own version, having this one tree in the middle of the field, and it's sparkling in different colors. And then to the side, adding some smaller tree trunks. Then I wanted to emphasize the wood texture within, so I used the same colors, indigo blue and burnt amber combination, to add more of a shadow and paint the root or between and within the trunk, adding some more of a shadows, as well as to the single branches some more of a texture, so it does not look too flat. And then maybe adding more of different colors, and not different colors, but more of a paint such as ultramarine blue, just to see where you can emphasize the tree branches and with the snow on the top. And there's a bit shadow in the back, and there's a bit of a white color, a white highlights at the front. Now the last bit is adding more of a turquoise blue to the smaller trees at the back, so it doesn't look too white. Okay, that's basically it. Thank you for watching, and remember to subscribe. Bye!